Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions, 4 p.m. BST or GMT now, because British Summertime is finished on a 4 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Returning back to the show is Andrew Erickson. How you doing?
Doing great, Danny. How are you?
Yeah, good. So you've joined us. There seems to be a legion of people. I've done more and more of these recently, which is brilliant for the space. Is that our life after exit series? So people that have tuned in and understand the format of these kind of shows is just trying to take you through the experience of the entrepreneur or the Amazon seller that sold their business. So, Andrew, let's just take it back a little bit in terms of I'm sure we've done we've done an in depth with you, haven't we? When we did our
Yeah.
last show, yes,
Oh,
we
no,
had.
actually, it wasn't an in-depth. It was we talked about different financing options and kind of how to find cash for
Cool.
your business and stuff.
Cool. So
But
we'll
we haven't
save
actually
that
done a proper in-depth.
information. Yeah. So what we'll do eventually soon, we'll do an in-depth. Yeah. And then we'll add that to the story. But today we just focus on how things come about, exit experiences, what you're doing now, that kind of stuff. So just kicking things off, where
Sure.
did it come to fruition when you went, it's time to sell? And what drove you with the market? Is it because of how much cash is in the market, demand? And so take it back to when, like, this timeline it. Let's go back to a period and work up to the sale.
Well, I will say that it was a long time coming. I always wanted, I won't go like way back in my childhood. I grew up in blah blah blah, but like I always wanted to start a business and I always wanted to sell a business just because that's cool. I guess I don't know. I always thought that was kind of a cool thing to do. And so when I started these Amazon businesses, I have a few brands. When I started them, whatever 6 7 years ago, I always had the idea that I would be able to potentially sell it. You've always been able to sell these businesses. These are assets that you can sell. It's just that it got really popular in this last year because of some large aggregators raising a lot of money. But originally it was I always wanted to sell it. So we went into 2020 not knowing what was going to happen in the middle of 2020. I think most of you guys know what happened in 2020, but we started actually every year we do a annual planning. I have a business partner and we do annual planning. We kind of set up like, what do we want this year to look like? We have a 3 and a 5 year vision. And we had in our 3 year vision 3 years ago, we did have sell the business. And going into 2020, we said, this is the year we're going to build up the business so that we can sell it at the beginning of the following year, which is the beginning of this year. So I've always wanted to sell it.
So with that in mind, you've always wanted to sell it anyway, but how did you perform through COVID? Did you have a good 12-month trailing? Because I think a lot of the aggregators are now aware of this with the COVID bump. They've made adjustments as they go along because some of the businesses that they bought obviously had a massive impact, especially when everyone was at home. I mean, like children's products and stuff like that, home learning and all those kind of things, craft done really, really well. So what's the what is the situation with you? Did you have a good like uplift and that really helped put some wind behind the sails, if you like?
Sort of. We were on the lucky side of COVID, in terms of our niche being we were not in travel or anything. We have some home decor, home organization stuff. So it actually was fairly good for us. We had a really a really nice May and June, but of course, as everyone knows, the logistics and the China shutting down, and we have some production in Vietnam that shut down, and we did have like a great, awesome kind of Q2, but then it was kind of plagued with stock outs and logistics and the cost of shipping going up. So overall, I would say COVID probably gave us a little bit of a bump up,
Yeah.
especially with the multiples going up. That definitely helped us a lot, but it wasn't like an oh my god, this like changed our life number. It was like just a little, like you said, a little bit of wind under our wings.
Cool. So how did you choose where you landed in terms of the brokerage? I mean, we've had people on the show just recently that they have they negotiated deals themselves, brought in a lawyer, some use a brokerage, some have obviously lawyer go direct to aggregator and stuff. So you used Empire Flippers, right?
Yeah, and so I will say, no, I know I've talked to a lot of people about exiting and why they did this and why I did this and what they should do. So the big thing that the big piece of advice is everybody's different.
Mm,
So I'll tell you my personal story of why we did this, but everyone kind of has different options and different stuff. But my reasoning behind going with a brokerage, we did talk to a few brokerages, and we kind of went back and forth, and kind of this one and that one. They're honestly, they're all really good. Like I didn't find one that was like, oh, these guys are terrible. They're all good.
mm,
We did settle with Empire Flippers because they have this API thing that they basically reconstruct your P&L
mm,
using Amazon's API. And the nice thing with that is that it did allow us to not be questioned too much on our P&L.
mm,
They have the API access, they have the thing. The Empire Flippers has a certain methodology, and so we never got too much like questioning, which is really nice because it's hard to negotiate when you don't have that like level of trust there. So that was a
mm.
big reason why I went with Empire Flippers. And now we did talk to people outside of the brokerage. We talked to people going into it just to kind of get a check with people, like why,
What, a
a few
cashier's check or a gut check kind of feel for
a,
things?
a gut check, a gut
Yeah,
check. So
yeah,
we
yeah.
yeah, cashier's check, yeah. um, so we ended up we got a few offers before.
Mm.
They were like okay offers. It wasn't quite what we were hoping for, but they were okay offers. And then we went into the brokerage. I mean, we call that like for sale. I mean, we call that
Mm.
for sale on the brokerage. And then we got a lot more of attention. The big thing is that, of course, Empire Flipper does the work for us in terms of like creating the P&L, and we have a P&L with our accountant, but we still ended up using their services.
Can I ask you
And
a
then
quick
we
question
Sure.
with that as well? Is that see, it seems to me before the whole trend of selling, well, always sold businesses, right? But
Mhm.
I've heard of Empire Flippers going back to maybe, and I may be wrong, and they could be around later than that, but I think 15, 16, 17, and they're like grandfathered in, but I don't hear as much about them now. It seems like they've always been there. So there's been a few brokers from the early days, and I'm sure they're thriving and everything else. It's quite interesting. I don't hear them as much now. And it seems like because direct deals with aggregators, the other types of brokerages have entered the market. It's kind of interesting when you said Empire Flippers, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember those guys, and they were like one of the what to me was one of the first in the space that established themselves doing.
Yeah, so you can actually look at this isn't a sales pitch for Empire
Yeah,
Flippers, right? This is just personal experience, right? But
yeah.
you can look at their website and see all those deals that they've done, and they
Mhm.
do about a deal a day, like an exit a day.
Wow,
Um,
so they're
and
smashing it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they do a lot. I mean, they're definitely. I don't know if they're like literally the biggest in the space, but of those, they're not all FBA businesses though. I think maybe half of them are.
Yeah.
So they're doing quite a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they are big-ish. I don't know how that compares to other brokerages or anything, but they are relatively
Well, they're just like one
large.
of the originals. They've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
They're established. They've been there since
Mhm.
day one. It's similar like with software in the space. As far as you can remember back, Greg Mercer with Jungle Scout is still in operation. It's still there. It's still the tool. To a point, you've got Helium 10. But do you understand what I mean? And like
Yep.
then you get
Mhm.
new incumbents and entrants to the market. So it's kind of interesting that they're still kind of they're in the conversation. Like you said, they're doing a deal a
Mhm.
day. So they're obviously super successful. How do they differentiate against like another company like which would charge you 5-10 grand a month for the broker? Like there's brokerages out there who will put skin in the game with you, and then they take their percentage on exit. But then there's also brokerages that take monthlies, and normally it's like a 3 to 4 month preparation process, and then they get a bit on the sale. So do they take monthlies, or is it just on the sale?
Ju It's just an exit, so it's just a pay on perform model.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
the brokerages that we looked at are pay for performance, so they
Yeah.
only get their money when they actually make the exit.
Mm.
And they just take, because they are the broker, they
Mm.
broker the deal, so they actually get the money from the buyer. They take their
Yeah.
percentage and then
Mm.
give you the remaining. So
Yeah.
like I mean, you are literally paying them, but like you
Mm.
never actually write a check to them. They just take their
Take
money
their percentage.
before.
No, it's just
Yeah.
interesting. It's like, is there really like, it seems now that a lot of the brokerages put skin in the game, and once they locked in to represent you for the sale, right? Because it's in your interest, they're a broker, right? That is there really a space left for people that are charging monthlies with so many people not charging monthlies? Because the thing is, the logic is, why would you pay a monthly when there's all these people not charging monthlies? You know, it's
Yeah.
just kind of interesting.
So I know some firms that will work with you to increase your exit, and they
Yeah, of
will
course. Yeah.
take, so they'll say like, okay, 6 to 12 months, let's work with you so that when you get to your exit 6 to 12 months from
Right.
now, it will be
Yeah.
bigger. And those people usually do take monthly retainers and then take a percentage of the exit.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like a firm that's working with you. The brokerages though, we just signed a 2-month exclusivity with the brokerage. And so it's just 2 months, 60 days. And they said, okay, we're going to get you a deal in 60 days. And if we don't, sorry, you can go to someone else.
Yeah. Cool. So obviously you went into auction. How many people were at the table that you know of in terms of leading up? Was it full transparency that they got right? You got this, no matter even if it was not such a great offer that come back, you're aware of every single deal that's on the table that's put forward, even lowballed ones.
Sure. Yep. So they have this whole dashboard thingy. They show you like how many people like unlock your profile, unlock your numbers. Your numbers, you're kind of like this niche with this revenue level is on their network, but there's not really any identifying information outside of that.
Yeah.
If you're like a proven buyer, then you can unlock the profile and they'll come in and see your numbers and everything. So we had something like, I don't know, 60 or 100 unlocks. So somewhere in that neighborhood where people like proven people who have 7 figures, 8 figures of cash in a bank account ready to buy stuff, they unlocked our profile. So we have whatever that is, 50 to 100. From there, we had chats with, I want to say, a dozen people. And one piece of advice, anybody going through exiting, talk to as many people as possible. That 1 hour call, if you have to wake up early, if you have to stay up late, if you have to whatever, you have to rearrange that visit with your aunt, like do it, because the more people you talk to gives you more opportunity to find the good buyer. So we talked to a dozen people.
You can learn and you can adjust for, let's just say, for a better way of it, that they're right. I'll speak to them. They're not as big as the big aggregator, and I know I've got to do a call with them, but it's your training wheels as well, getting the field to speak to these various different companies. And then let's say you get one that you know is a lot bigger and they're highly visible. It means you're a bit more prepared, because most sellers do not know, like they've never sold a business before, so it's their first rodeo, right? So then conversations are important.
And Danny, that is why what you just said right there, that's why when we went with the brokerage. They're expensive. I mean, you can look up the numbers. They charge somewhere between 7 and 15% commission. 15% is really high. Don't let them charge you that much. So you can also, here's another piece of advice. You can negotiate down the commissions. So make sure.
I think anything above 7%, then you might, that's where you leverage by speaking to other brokers.
Exactly.
Yeah, 15's high, but 5 and 7, depends on your value and your negotiation skills. Pretty good.
Exactly. And so with the reason why we went with a brokerage is because I've never sold one of these things before. And I've bought a few homes at real estate, right? And so we have 3 properties. And I've always gone with a real estate agent because I don't know how to buy a house. I've never done it. Even after I've done it 3 times, I still know it's hard. I still know there's like other things that are involved that you can't tell, you can't see. And once, at some point, if I ever do go down that real estate market thing and I get my real estate license and I've done 5 or 10 deals, then I'll sell stuff by myself. I'll know how to do it. I'll be confident. I'll know all the pitfalls. I'll have my, I will have been following someone else, and then I'll be ready to lead. But until then, I'm going to use a real estate agent. Same idea with a brokerage. I wanted to just make sure there was someone in my corner helping me and making sure that like, oh yeah, that offer, that's a BS offer, or that earnout, yeah, those guys aren't super legit, whatever. And so they'll tell you that they'll help you go through that whole thing and stuff. And so like that was the big reason why I went with the brokerage. It's just to have someone there to like hold my hand and make sure I'm not screwing the whole thing up.
Yeah. So we get through you got the brokerage, you got different people to the table. How many were run down into, did you have like a final three and then you were going back and forth between the three, or did you just set yourself on one?
We had a dozen offers. Oh, sorry, a dozen calls. And
Hmm.
then we end up getting, I guess, technically 5 offers. And 3 of them I considered to be fairly low. They were like not insulting, but they're relatively low. They're
Hmm.
low enough that I wouldn't have sold. I would just held onto the
Yeah.
company at that point, right? And then with the final 2 offers, one came in and we just spreadsheeted it all out,
Hmm.
and the one just ended up being a little bit better than the other. And the big benefit for us was it was a all cash offer
Hmm.
up front. So we got all the cash this year. Inventory is purchased 6 months from now, which actually puts it into the following tax year. So we can kind of split that whatever a couple $100,000 next year
Hmm.
into the next tax year, which helps us a lot. And it was just all cash on the table. Here's your check. And for me, I know you can get higher multiples. You can get this, you can get that with
Do
earnouts,
earnouts and stuff. Yeah.
and they're great options for people. I mean, that's definitely, if that's a thing, if you work with somebody who has a good reputation, a good history and stuff,
Mm.
then earnouts can be fantastic. But we were kind of just wanting to rely on ourselves, not necessarily a stranger or some large firm. This is personal choice, of course.
Yeah.
Some large firm to kind of like run our business better and pay us their
Hmm.
part of their better running efficiency profit, right? So we just took the cash offer. Now that was the big choice between the two. There's one, they're both really good. One was cash, one was earn out. We took the cash.
Yeah. And so how long did that take once you went into discovery? How long did it take to button it down and get the money into the bank?
It was pretty quick. It was so there's a 2-week inspection period, right?
Mhm.
And so like I like to tell people the inspection period was kind of like I was driving the car and the buyer was sitting shotgun, and so he's watching everything and he's asking and he's kind of like looking at this. It wasn't too much auditing though. I was ready. I cleared my calendar for like 2 weeks. I'm like, no meetings. We're going to show all of our purchase orders. We're going to show all of our documents. We're going to have all the things all set up, like ready to go, like ready to hand over. And there was just a little bit of due diligence. It wasn't really anything crazy.
Mhm.
It was honestly surprisingly easy, the due diligence part. So
Yeah.
2 weeks of inspection. That took a week or two to kind of like get into it. So let's just say a month. It was about a month of when we signed our APA, the asset purchase agreement.
Yeah.
About a month later, we went into then the handover period. Handover
Mhm.
period took 30 days. So really about 60 days from our from the proper signed agreement, the APA agreement. About 60 days later, we had cash in the bank.
Nice. Cool. And how do you feel once that money hit the account? What was the your first impression?
That was really fun. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's a big life-changing moment. It was like the thing I've been building up to for years, and that small little like someday I'll do this thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
today is someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So it's fun. It's awesome. My business partner and we just got on the phone. I actually so I have a podcast as well. It's not
Yeah.
nearly as amazing as Danny's, and my business partner and we actually recorded an episode right as the money showed up and talked
Mm.
about our feelings and
Mm.
what it felt like and the fun thing. We had a little beer. We like toasted on the video chat and stuff. So ZonCon podcast if you want to see that. But
Yeah.
it's great, man. It's a good feeling.
Good. And what's next for you now? Have you decided how you're going to start to invest the money? You're going to go again, new Amazon business?
Yeah, so actually our the grander vision, as I mentioned before at the beginning, we have 3-year visions, 1-year plan, and quarterly goals, right? That's
Mm.
kind of the traction method. If any of the nerds out there like goal setting, the traction method it's a book by Gino Wickman. We follow that. So our 3-year vision, 5-year vision is to create these brands and
Mm.
spend 2-3 years creating a brand and selling them, but starting the next brand before we exit. So we actually are just jumping right into our next brand. We already have 4 products launched in that
Mhm.
brand, and we sold the bigger brand, and then we're just jumping into that second one. And that brand, the goal is to hit the 7-figure mark run rate. So it'll be 85,000 a month revenue by the end of this calendar year. So in the next 6 weeks, hopefully. And then we'll just build it back up, hit, do another, hopefully 2 million, 3 million in revenue, build it up over the next year and a half, and then sell that as well and keep doing that. Rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. Sounds good. What about investments? You said you've got 2 or 3 properties. I know you live in one, but investment properties at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So we moved into a much nicer house this summer. Technically,
so you've upgraded there, but you've also got, because that's a cost rather than an asset, because you're living in it. You're not being able to rent it out. So, but you've got 3 other properties that you rent out, and that's where you get residual income from.
Well, so the property that we moved into, we I live in Southern California where the properties are pretty expensive, and so we, in near London out there, it's expensive places of the world, right? And so we had kind of saved up enough to get into our new house. We owned our condo. We were living in a condo, and again, these sort of downtownish condos, so they're kind of popular whatever spots. And so I knew I was getting some more money at the second half of the year. So we did buy a larger house and kept our condo as a rental property, with knowing that I was going to have a larger cash infusion the second half of the year. But yeah, I do have a condo in San Diego. I have my primary home in San Diego. I actually have a duplex in New Jersey, which is the east side of the United States. And I went in with basically a friend who helped me do that. And I have the boring stocks, the S&P 500, VT Sachs, boring total stock market funds. I do have a handful of crypto stuff. I actually mined a lot of it myself, like 5-6 years ago. But I have a little bit of crypto stuff. And then we're just reinvesting in the business, the new private label business, and building it up, and hopefully taking, $50,000, $100,000 seed money and making it, instead of taking 6 years for an exit, takes only 2.5 years for an exit.
Yeah. So if you were to give advice to other sellers out there, what's say 1 or 2 things that you would definitely do differently now? Because you're going to exit, instead of I think it's the average of 3.8 months, 3 years and 8 months is the average to a standard exit, I think. But you can go as low as 24 months up to 30, depending on the speed that you can go at, and obviously the petrol you can pour in, i.e. the money, to get you off the ground quicker. So what are some of the things that you would change now? Because you have legacy, right? You've done a load of stuff in your business that you would never do again. I'll do that differently. What are all the things you do differently now versus the business you sold?
That's a good question. So I'm a lot more confident now on picking products and launching them. So now throwing $5,000-$10,000 at a launch, I'm like, no problem. Before I was really nervous, and I would just kind of, throw like $1,000 at it to see if it works. And then, maybe another couple $100 to see if it works. Now I'm like, nope, I feel confident we can do this thing. Let's throw, $3,000, $5,000 at this launch. No problem. We'll see, we'll start with 5,000. We'll add another 5 if we need it. So that's a big one we're doing now. In terms of the beginning of the business, I don't know. Cause before I bootstrapped, and I really just kind of churned the profit over in the business. And it took 3.5 years to finally take profit out of the business. But I started with that core, I don't know, it was $5,000, $10,000, and kind of like doubled it after 6 months, and doubled it after 6 months, and doubled it after 6 months, so on and so on, to the point where I could finally take a salary. And now we don't have to do that. We can just throw $50,000, $100,000 at inventory, $10,000 at each launch, and we can just go a lot faster. So the advice I would give people is, yes, if you are starting, or if you're, I know Danny, everyone in your audience is like the medium, larger sellers. So, but for those who are starting, I think it's okay to start slow. Do take those risks. Do throw $10,000 at something, throw an extra few $1,000 at something to make it work, so that you can learn. But for the medium and larger sellers, like if you know how to do this business and you know how to run, you know how to pick a product and you know how to do PPC campaigns and you know how to launch a product and you know how to market a product, go for it. Go all in, do this thing, do it big, and then have your big exit at the end.
Sounds good. With that, then let's hold it there. And what is the best way that people can reach you?
Well, like I said, I have a podcast, the Amazon Conversations podcast, or ZonCon, ZonCon podcast. So you can reach me there, or you can reach me. I'm also inside of Titan, which is a mastermind for Amazon sellers. Andrew at titanmembers.com. And then Instagram, if you want, the Andrew Erickson. I answer all my DMs if you want to reach out. Yeah.
Sounds good. Andrew, thank you for
Can I
joining
add one
us
thing,
today.
Danny?
Of course, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So those who have been following Danny and the podcast for a long time already know this, but I just want to throw it out there that Danny is a super legit guy. Like he's really has a really great reputation in the community, and every person, I know a lot of people, no one has anything bad to say about Danny. So like Danny, I just appreciate you for being in the community and like being community driven, and like I just love you, Danny. So
trust me, there's a few out there that don't, but you know, as I always say to people, like my door's always open. And there's always a way of chopping it up and come to agreements. You know, we work in a competitive industry, but I always say I do my business behind closed doors, but my door's always open. And I operate from a place of love and respect. And that's where I start from. But obviously, if it goes the other way, then we had different conversations. But my point is that, yeah, like I try and treat everyone the same. And I treat people how I'd like to be treated myself. That's it. It's very simple.
Yep. And it shows
anyway,
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We've got a bit of an emotional one there, but lovely to see you again. We'll get you back at some point to do your in-depth. And yeah, congratulations to yourself and your family for your exit. I hope you got some nice legacy money there. And yeah, looking forward to seeing more of your successes.
Thank you, Danny.
All right, brother. Take care. Bye.
You too.